Hey, welcome to Dan Harsh and Associates, 5 Steps to Improve Sales. We have a 5-video set series going on right now, and you are in video 2, step 2, and we are going to be creating an effective sales strategy and structure and walking through how to do that. Links to all of the videos are down below. You can jump into any one of those videos at any time. Perhaps you've already watched the first video where we define your sales goal. And this one, we're going to be talking about how to create an effective sales strategy and structure. The other videos include define your message and your channels, how we're going to deliver that message, placing the right people in the right positions. And video number 5 is making CRM an integral part of your sales process. As I said, all the links are down below. You can jump into any one of those videos at any time. Let's get into today's video, where we're going to talk about how to create an effective sales strategy and structure. And we're going to break this down into about 6 different steps. And the first step we're going to talk about is defining your short-term and your long-term goals. So let's kind of walk through that. For the purpose of today, what we want to do is we want to look at this in a big picture strategy. We don't want to get into all the detail for this exercise. We want to stay into the big picture strategy. So as you're looking at defining your short-term or your long-term strategy, let's think about why. Once again, if you've watched any of the other videos, you're seeing this why question come up more and more. So why is this your direction? Do you have a short-term and a long-term strategy? And keep in mind, if you do, those strategies could be in opposition to one another. Your short-term strategy may not necessarily be consistent with your long-term strategy. And that doesn't mean it's wrong. That's just the way it is. You have certain things you have to get accomplished in this short-term strategy. And your short-term strategy may be critical to you reaching your long-term strategy. So as you lay out both your short-term and your long-term strategy, do you have data to support this direction? Why is this the direction you want to go? How important is your short-term strategy in your long-term strategy? Do you have to wait until your short-term strategy is achieved before you move in to your long-term strategy? Will you be running both of them simultaneously? What happens if you don't hit your short-term strategy? So as you start to lay out the strategy and creating an effective structure, think about the detail behind this. What is that long-term? What is that short-term? And why is that the direction that I want to go? The next thing we want to talk about is identifying your target markets. Why is this the target market or markets you want to go after? Once again, why? Keep in mind, that's an important question throughout all of this that you want to be asking yourself. Why is that my target market? Do I have history or experience in these markets? Do I have some history that demonstrates this is a successful market for me to go after? I perform well. I do well in this market. Do I have that history? Do I have that data to support that? What we don't want to do is just say, hey, I'm going after that market because I think that's a good market. We have to have some supporting data that can quantify that market for us. Are these markets looking for, or are they currently using your product or your service? Are they familiar with your product and your service? Maybe not necessarily you in particular, but are they familiar with your type of product or your type of service? Are you moving into a market that you're going to have to educate, or is this market very well informed of your product or service? Will these markets support you hitting your sales goal? Are they large enough? Are they big enough that you can hit your sales goal by going after these markets? Will these markets support that? What's the sales cycle in these markets? Is the sales cycle conducive to your sales goal? Is the sales cycle going to enable you to turn deals in this market fast enough for you to achieve your goal? Do these markets, are they consistent with your short term and your long term? Are they different for both of those objectives? You got to identify, why is this the market you're going after, and do you have data to support it, and will that data support you hitting the sales goal that we talked about in step 1? Is this market going to support you hitting that sales goal? Who's the decision maker? Who am I going after in these markets? What's their title? What's their function? Why am I going after that person? Why do I believe that's the person, that's the function that I need to talk to? How am I going to find these companies? It's one thing to say I'm going after them, but how easy is it going to be to find them? Am I going to have to go out and search and get lists? Am I going to be marketing through LinkedIn and identifying them that way? Am I running some Google Ads campaigns that I'm hoping to drive them into me? Do I have pay-per-click going on? Is my social media going to drive them? Am I going to some outsourcing company? How am I going to find these companies? That's important as you walk through creating your strategy. I need to know how I'm going to get there. What's the best way to reach these decision makers? Once you identify the company and you know who you're going after, how are you going to reach them? Is calling them the best way? Are you going to catch them on their phone? I know personally there's certain functions that it's easy to reach them on the phone. There's other functions you'll never reach them on the phone. So as you're looking at the decision maker that you want to go after, how are you going to reach them? Is calling going to be effective? Is emailing going to be effective? Am I going to reach them on LinkedIn? Do I need to stay in front of them regularly with some type of a nurturing campaign because the sales cycle is going to be long? So who am I going after? Why am I going after them? Where am I going to find these companies? And what is the best way to get in front of these decision makers? Once I've identified the markets and who I'm going to go after, now I got to start thinking about what type of sales structure, what type of engine do I need in order to make that happen? And one of the things we're going to talk about is, what are the sales and marketing functions that you need to perform? You know, sometimes we think sales, well, we sell and we market, but we really need to break down the individual functions. And we're going to talk about where's that priority go. And some of the functions I want to talk about are, one, the sales and marketing manager. We're going to get into detail on that. We're going to talk about CRM. Where's that fit now in this engine, in this structure? Prospecting, lead generation, qualification, nurturing. That's a function. Closing sales, marketing. So we're going to break down each of these functions. Remember, we're talking about this sales structure, this engine, and we're talking about what are the sales and marketing functions that we need to perform. So let's talk about the sales manager. First of all, you got to really think this through. We have the sales and marketing manager here. This could be one person. This could be two separate functions. And that's probably going to be dictated on the size of your organization. But regardless if it's one person or two people, this role, this function, it has to work like this. They have to collaborate. In today's market, I believe marketing is just another extension of sales. Everything marketing does is to drive a sale. So this role, this sales, this marketing role, this sales, this marketing manager, It has to, if it's one person, and we'll talk about that, or if it's two, those two functions have to work together. So what are some things that this role is responsible for? Keep in mind, we have a structure that we're putting together, an engine. This role is taking on engine management. Think of everything that's going to be involved in this sales engine. It's going to be everything from personnel to strategy to execution to performance. This role is the person that's managing all of that. It's strategy execution. We're laying out our strategy, the markets we're going after. Somebody has to ultimately be responsible for carrying out that strategy. It's performance management. There's going to be a lot of moving parts in this engine. There's people, there's functions, there's activities. There's a lot of moving parts. Somebody's ultimately has to be responsible for the performance of all of those parts. And then lastly is personnel. There's going to be multiple people in your sales structure, in your sales engine. Somebody has to manage them. What are some things that this role has to be able to do? Well, one, they must be able to sell. Don't confuse that you're going to take your best salesperson and move them into the management. Generally, that does not work very well for multiple reasons, and we're not going to get into that today, but generally that does not work very well. But they have to be able to sell because they have to be able to relate in carrying out these other functions. They have to be able to manage salespeople. Therefore, they need to know how to sell themselves. They must be able to manage people. This is critical. You have to have a sales manager, a marketing manager that can manage people. They have to be somebody that can harness people. They have to be somebody that can communicate a vision, a strategy, a plan, and move people through that process. Get people on board to buy into that plan. They have to be able to manage and motivate people. They must be proficient with technology and CRM. In today's market, things are moving so fast, so dynamic. You have to have a sales and marketing manager that is proficient with technology and CRM. In today's market, if you do not have somebody that is current and able to move with technology, it's going to be very difficult for you to compete, and it's only going to continue to get worse. Very important that this role, this sales and marketing role, whether it's one or two people, must be proficient with technology and CRM. They must understand social media marketing. Whether we like it or not, much of our marketing today is through social media. Through Facebook, through LinkedIn, whatever it may be, a lot of our marketing is coming through social media. We have to have somebody in this role that understands that, and it's very, very dynamic. So there's some of the aspects we got to consider. The sales and marketing manager, as we're laying out roles and functions in this engine. The next area we want to talk about is CRM. Remember, we're talking about what are the sales and marketing functions we need in our new structure. CRM. CRM is a must. We have to have CRM today. If you don't have CRM, that has to move up on your priority list. If you have CRM but you are not using it, it has to move up on your priority list. You have to have CRM and you have to begin using it the way it was designed. CRM must become a priority for you. It's the hub. It's the hub in which everything in your sales and marketing group centers around. CRM, it captures, it controls, it reports everything that is going on. It's your window of visibility. It's your tool as a manager, as an owner, It's your tool that gives you the window of visibility in to see everything that is going on. That is your tool to get the real-time reporting that you need to make educated, informed decisions. CRM is a must. If you have it and you're not using it, then you got to step back and figure out, what do I got to do to get people using this? If you don't have it and you're getting ready to bring it in, my suggestion to you is start small. Start with the basics. It's very important as you bring CRM in that you get user adoption. One of the biggest hurdles, one of the biggest downsides or downfalls for companies with CRM is actually getting people to use it. Keep in mind, CRM is nothing more than a tool. If you don't get people to use it, it will not do anything for you. So don't try to implement it and make it big that it does everything. Start small, start with the basics, get people using it, allow people to begin seeing the value, and then they will want more. As they want more, the user adoption will begin to happen. The last bullet I put here is don't put lead generation initiatives on hold while you implement CRM. I think that is a huge mistake, and I see it happen all the time. Companies will say, well, I don't want to do any lead generation until I get CRM up. Well, basically what you're saying is I'm putting sales on hold. I don't want to do anything until sales never goes on hold. Sales is always the priority. Do not put sales initiatives on hold while you implement CRM. CRM can catch up. Sales never goes on hold. Let's keep moving through. We talked about a couple of the things we need, a couple of the functions, sales and marketing, CRM. The next is prospecting, lead generation, qualification, nurturing. What all goes into that? For every successful sales structure, for every successful sales engine, prospecting and lead generation is probably at the core of that. You have to have some part of this engine that is continually finding new business, continually prospecting for new business. You need a lead generation function that is continually going on trying to find you new business from new customers. So that has to be in my opinion, that has to be a dedicated function within your sales group. Now, there's many ways that you can go about accomplishing this role of prospecting and lead generation and qualification, nurturing. Is cold calling the best way for you? I don't know. That's going to be dictated by your strategy, by your markets, by the decision makers you're going after. Remember, we talked about, are those decision makers, are they easy to get a hold of via calling? It's going to be dictated. How you go about your prospecting and your lead generation is going to be dictated by your strategy, by your markets. So is cold calling going to be a component? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be a component, but maybe not the component. What about Google Ads? Is your market out on Google searching for companies like yours, searching for services, searching for products like yours? Pay per click. Are you going to want to be paying to drive people to your website? SEO. Okay, SEO is extremely important. Okay, that can be part of your prospecting, your lead generation. Email campaigns. Once again, how much time I put here is going to be dictated by your markets, by your decision makers. Who am I going after? Target accounts, ABM, account-based marketing. Is that part of my prospecting, who I'm going after? What about inbound? If I got these things working for me, I got leads coming in, that's going to have to be part of this prospecting, lead generation, qualification, nurturing. CRM, one of the values of CRM is all of the automation, the workflows that happen in the background. Your cadences, sequences, moving people through the funnel. Very important. Once again, another reason why CRM is so important. So as we're looking at what functions do I need in this engine, prospecting and lead generation is critical. Next, we're going to talk about closing sales. Closing sales sounds like a given, but let's talk about what I mean by closing sales. You got to have somebody in your organization or a group, depending on the size of your organization, that is responsible for closing business. And I'm talking about closing new sales from new customers. Let me say that again. I'm talking about closing new sales from new customers, not account management. I'm not talking about that right now. We'll talk about that in a second. But I got to have somebody, when my prospecting, my lead generation, my nurturing, my qualification, when that is qualifying and turning people up through the funnel and pushing them through the funnel, I got to have somebody who is qualified to close them. And not everybody is a closer. The same as not everybody can do lead generation. Not everybody can do management. Same with closing sales. Not everybody can close sales. You want to think this role through and where it fits inside this structure in this engine, and what's the emphasis that I'm putting on this as far as number of people, that type of thing. This role's got to be doing your presentations, your face-to-face calls, your proposals, your follow-ups. Maybe they're going after targeted accounts while your engine, other parts of your engine are going after other markets. This group maybe is going after very targeted accounts. So what about account management? Account management to me is not sales. It's account management. It's managing business you have. Sales for me is going out and finding new business from new customers. That's just the way I look at it. That doesn't mean account management is not important. Account management is extremely important. It's taking care of your customers. But to grow, you got to get new business from new customers. This group is taking care of existing customers. They got their own set of things they got to do. They got to sell new products, new services into this customer base. But as I'm putting together my sales engine, I'm not sure this role is part of my sales engine. They are part of my company, but they're probably not part of my sales structure or sales engine, because it's a total task all by itself. And I'm not going to get into detail with that. I have a book on that. I'll put a link to the book down below. You can read a whole book I wrote on this concept of new business from new customers and where account management fits in. But for the sake of the engine, they would not be included in my engine. They would be included in my company, but not in my engine. So once again, closing sales is another whole function we got to talk about as we put together our sales structure. The last piece in this is marketing. Where does marketing fit? Well, as I mentioned earlier, marketing and sales needs to be like this. It is very, very integrated. Marketing covers a lot of ground today, and marketing is integral for companies today. Marketing is no longer creating pamphlets and flyers and brochures. Marketing, in my opinion, marketing has to be very much focused on closing sales, driving activity that gets pushed and managed through a funnel that comes out on the other end as a closed customer. Some of the things that this role has to perform and you need And your sales engine is website management, SEO, content, updates, landing pages, everything that goes into managing your website. Why? Because SEO is very important to your lead generation. They're going to be responsible for lead generation. They're going to manage all the Google ads, the pay-per-clicks, your social posts. Maybe it's newsletters. Somebody has to manage that. Somebody has to drive all that. Campaign management. You're going to have email campaigns going on. You're going to have content that needs created. You're going to have messaging. You're going to need consistency across messaging, across all mediums. Somebody has to manage all of that. Somebody's going to be doing all of your social posts. Marketing is a very integral function within your organization. What you're going to have to determine is your sales and marketing manager, one person or two. This role, this marketing role, easily is a full-time job. Depends where you are in your company and how big your company is, but it's going to be a decision for you whether or not your sales and marketing is one person or two. So we talked about the functions that need to go into this engine, your sales and marketing manager, CRM, prospecting, lead generation, closing sales, marketing. There's a lot of functions you got to give thought to. What priority am I putting on those? And that should be dictated by your structure and the markets that you're going after. The next thing we want to talk about in creating an effective sales strategy and structure is you got to determine your budget. I think a place to start is take an inventory of all your current sales and marketing cost. I want to identify everything because once I identify everything, I got to get to a number because it's that number that I'm probably going to realign. I'm going to reallocate, redistribute those costs because if you watched video 1, we talked about thinking outside the box. I'm probably not going to be implementing the same type of sales structure I had before. So I'm going to try to implement something that's much more efficient, much more effective than what I have now, and I'm going to try to do it without spending any more money. And so that's why I'm talking about realigning dollars. So let's take an inventory of all your current sales and marketing costs. And obviously that's going to include your people, your salaries, commissions, but all of your outsourcing functions. That could be maybe you use people outside to manage your website or website support. You might outsource lead generation. You might have consulting, et cetera. You got to put all those functions together. What kind of cost am I spending there? What about all your advertising, whether it's Google ads, the pay-per-click, am I advertising on LinkedIn? What about publications, licensing? A lot of money is wasted here in licensing. Obviously, you get the big things like CRM, but what else are you spending subscriptions on, licensing on, other software, could be LinkedIn, et cetera. Take an inventory of all your software. Swag, what about all your giveaways? How much am I spending there? Travel, events, trade shows. What am I spending? Association fees. Anything else you can think of. We got to gather all this together and find out what am I currently spending, and I want to arrive at a number. Once I arrive at that number, then I can begin, if my goal is to take those same dollars, then I can begin assigning costs based on my new defined functions the exercise we just went through. If my new proposed costs are higher than what I'm currently spending, I got to step back and I either got to say, hey, I'm going to increase my budget, or I'm going to back in and I'm only going to spend what I've been spending. A decision has to be made there. But you're going to have to decide If my decision is I'm not spending anymore, I'm just going to try to get better and more effective, then I got to realign these costs, and I got to begin to allocate budget based on the function and the priority of these things that we just talked about. So as you begin to allocate your budget based on function and priority, there's a couple things that you're probably not going to have a lot of leeway. Your sales and marketing manager, it's kind of a given. You kind of know what that person or persons are going to cost. CRM, it kind of is what it is as far as it costs so much to implement it and its licensing costs. So these are going to, I'm not going to say dictate themselves, but you're not going to have a lot of leeway to mess around here. This area here is where you're going to probably be able to spend a lot more time in reallocating those sales dollars. As you realign your existing budget, how much of that is going to go to closing new sales? How much of that is going to go to finding new sales? How much of that is going to your marketing efforts? This is probably the area that I would be spending time in. How much time and how much dollars am I going to allocate to these three areas? Once again, that decision's probably going to be dictated by your sales goal. If my sales goal is to find new business from new customers, to grow new business, new sales, new markets, then I'm probably going to be spending or reallocating a lot of dollars in this area here. So once again, if you watched step one, your sales goal, that's why it's so important to take your time in defining your sales goal, because everything else, as we discussed in that first video, is going to be dictated based on that. So once you define your sales budget, and I'm going to start with what I'm currently spending, then I got to begin to allocate budget, my new budget, based on function priority of where I want to put those dollars. The next step then, we've defined our short and long-term strategies. We've identified our target markets. We've gone through, we've designed our sales structure, our engine. We know what our budget is. We're laying it out. Let's whiteboard this and workflow it. Let's lay it out. Let's diagram it. Let's flow chart it out. Let's lay it all out and walk through some exercise of process to walk through real life situations to see where the bottlenecks are. Does this structure, as I see it in my head, is it really working out the way I think? The goal here, the objective here in whiteboarding it and workflowing it is we're looking for stress points. We're looking for weaknesses. I want to evaluate capacities. In the way I'm designing it, can my lead generation function of my engine, can it generate enough business to meet my sales goal? Does my closing sales part of my sales engine, is it enough to close the type of business I need? Can it keep up with the amount of activity my lead generation is going to generate? I'm looking for problem areas, and then I'll adjust. So once you have this strategy laid out, you want to lay it all out on paper, flow chart it, whiteboard it out, whatever, and walk through real life situations to see where the stress points are. Where is this maybe not working? And then you can begin to adjust. Lastly is, after you've gone through this, review with an unbiased, qualified, experienced person. Once you have this laid out to the best of your ability, run it by somebody. Run it by somebody you respect, or some outside qualified sales and marketing group, professional that can look at this and even challenge you a little bit more. You don't want to take a chance of overlooking something. Your sales, your marketing is way too important for you to be making a mistake simply because you overlooked something. It will never be perfect. You're trying to do as much as you can to minimize problem areas. So put this out in front of somebody, another set of eyes and ears that's qualified, and let them listen to what you've put together. So those are the steps that I put through in creating an effective sales strategy and structure. And some of this, I'm sure you know, you've thought about, but are you doing it? That's really the question here is, are you doing it? And I think the way I laid it out gives you some very specific things to think about. So that is video 2 in our 5 steps to improve sales. The next video, if you're following in line, is defining your messaging and channels. And there's some good stuff in this video. Once again, all the links are down below. Jump down there, jump into this. I want to thank you for listening in to step 2, video 2. Hopefully you've gotten something out of video 1 and video 2. And I'll look forward to seeing you on video 3. Thanks for tuning in.